Hey everybody, welcome back to game 3 of Krot versus General Boulanger in the third Black tournament where they play, or the tournament is being played with a mod that implements all the known changes coming up for the South African DLC, excluding South Africa itself, of course. This is game 3 of a best of 3, so whoever wins this will move on. If this is a draw, it depends on who has amassed the most amount of conquest points over the 3 games, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head actually who did that. But maybe that already shows you that it's not going to be a draw. And yeah, we have Krot playing Red Dragon's Veganize, similarly to... No, he hasn't played it in this best of 3 yet. He has played it against Blitzwar. Yeah, that's where I remember it. It is a bit different. I believe... I don't fully remember, but it definitely looks different because for one, he only uses 2 cards of these good 500s. You have 3 cards available. Last time he used up all 3 cards. This time he doesn't. Probably forgot to replace his Shanchi 85 in the bad 500 with Shanchi 85 in a good 5-pointer. It's not really a huge deal, but you know, if you know, there's a lot of small things like that they could add up. Tokchon 130mm. I don't think he had this last time as well. But I mean, other than that, it's Red Dragon Mech. It's a lot of Shanchi spam. It's John Maho 5s. Those CTQ 62s, which are quite strong for 15 points. 3 HE for 15 points on a mobile, no autonomy issue, 3 armor recon tank. Not to be underestimated. And yeah, I mean, it's Red Dragon's Mech, right? You just spam Shanchi and John Maho 5s behind. I've said it just yesterday, I guess for you it would be 2 days, on the bootcamp Discord. I think nowadays I think that Mechanized, even before the upcoming changes, is probably the strongest spec for our dragons actually. Quite a while ago I saw Amber T, if you remember who that is, especially during Island Battle, quite a pronoun player, I guess, if you could call it. No, that's not how you call it. Anyway, quite a famous player. You know what I mean. And I saw him play like Red Dragon's Mech just like half a year ago or so, and you know, I kind of like smirked at it. I found it a bit funny, but then I was like, you know what? Let me try it out myself, and I was kind of surprised at how well it actually performed. So yeah, I think this, even again before these upcoming changes, I think people, maybe don't think too much of this deck, but this is quite a strong deck. But yeah, let's take a look at what General Boulanger plays. And Boulanger plays Israel Mech. I've had a history with this deck as well, but it is, don't get me wrong, it is an incredibly strong deck. Although before the upcoming changes, there's not a massive reason to play this over Blue Mech. Although the Doorbands are quite nice. The Mar 290 is arguably better than the LRM. Machbite is really good. The Magach 7C Gimel, definitely one of the best medium tanks in the game. Second best, arguably best, compared to the M84A. And Talbot, if you're watching, I'm not going to say the line. Planes, of course, very strong. And of course, you get the 15 actually additional activation points compared to Blue Mech. So you lose on variety, but you can sort of get this variety back in a sense that you can afford to put in more units, more different units, right? You can put 3 cards of AA plus 2 cards of artillery. You can't really afford it in Blue Mech, for example. 5 cards of logistics, right? So you somewhat make up for that. And depending on what map you play on, which they would know beforehand, Israel Mech might very well perform better than Blue Mech. You still get the Kernels, of course, but you also get stuff like the Barak 2 and the Hafitz is, I don't know, it is prototype. They're both prototyped. They're a bit niche, but maybe if you remember that the 1-2 versus 2 I played with a random and the Greyhound was on the opponent team, he absolutely wrecked me with those parades. Don't underestimate them, but they have to be microed well. But Boulanger is someone who could definitely micro them well. He's one of the people where I would definitely trust that he could micro them well enough to get a lot of value out of them. But he's also going up against a mech deck, and against a mech deck, I don't know. It's mostly like cheap spam, so there's no real place for this, I think. Unless he goes up against like 4 stacks of Chalmero 5s. Magach 6, whoopsie, is an interesting choice. It's not really a horrible tank, I suppose, but I think I'd probably just go for the Merkava one. It's essentially like an M1 Abrams, but you get 1 additional armor. You lose out on the optics, which is annoying, of course, speed and a bit of autonomy, but still a very solid tank. I don't know. I don't think the Magara is particularly good, but I don't expect him to bring this out a whole lot either. So at the end of the day, maybe he just had 2 activation points left, wanted to put in a tank and just put in some random tank. I don't know. I don't think we're gonna see this a lot anyway. But yeah, that said, of course, Israel in general a bit awkward against mobile decks, but not so much against mech decks that are slow themselves. So the awkward AA, which is one of the big issues, not playing a huge role. You don't have shock squads, of course, but again, not a huge role unless you have to fight in towns, because then you're just gonna wreck everything with Merkava to Ace. But yeah, let's get into the game. Surprisingly enough, we're playing on Highway to Seoul, and both players decide to play mech. Don't get me wrong, mech is very strong, but you can also make a lot of work out of moto decks, out of Baltic Front and the like. And Baltic Unspec, as much as Baltic got nerfed, Baltic Unspec still quite the deck. You still have the spikes, you still have the M1 Wilk, you still have the KTs are still good, you know, but both players deciding to bring a mech deck. What may be the reason is whoever had to reveal their deck first decided they're gonna play mech, and then the other player was like, felt that to counter that mech deck they had to bring a mech deck themselves. But if I had to guess, I would definitely say that Krot had to reveal his deck first, if I had to guess, because I think Red Dragons is gonna have massive issues with the Merkava 2A. Don't get me wrong, Chunmaho 5 is good, but you don't have access to the 110, 120 point tanks that on more open field, which there is a lot, right? In these ranges, right, you want these 120, 130 point tanks to deal with the Merkava 2As. In deep forests, the Merkava 2As are gonna be a big issue, but you don't have a lot of deep forests. You have like this and maybe like these parts, but other than that, you don't really fight at like 350 meter ranges against tanks. Here it's more about, you know, these 1,000, 1,500 meter range engagements. Here you rarely use a full range. Here you might, but in this part, not so much. So this is where like the 120 point tanks, the Leopard 2A4s, the T72 M2 Wilks, they're gonna be your go-to way to deal with Merkava 2As. Or additionally, if you have access to such stuff, Eric's squads. Red Dragons is neither, of course. Again, the Chunmaho 5 is a good tank, but not so strong that it vastly overperforms the Merkava 2A. Of course, if they go 1-to-1 in the open field or something, the Chunmaho is most likely going to win. But realistically, these engagements don't happen. Most notably because Merkava 2A carries infantry itself. So, I think, if I had to guess, Krot had to declare his deck first, and Boulanger chose Israel mech to counter it. Israel's and most notably Israel mech's biggest weakness, lack of speed. And when it comes to mono decks, mech decks, Red Dragons is one of the slowest mech decks, which are already slow, right? But you have no real wheeled, fighting vehicles. You don't have Hachinanas, you don't have AMX Sense, you don't have BRM 3s, nothing of the sorts. And even your helicopters are pretty bad. You have MI4s to drop, which are slow, but at least they're cheap. Don't get me wrong, Yakinde 90s, quite useful in mech. And you have a basic M25, which is okay, but doesn't carry infantry. So Israel's biggest weakness is essentially nil. And the other weakness that it sometimes has, but not always, the AA is a bit awkward, but once again, relatively weak helicopters. M25 is okay, the Gazelle Hot is quite good, but nothing that suddenly, overwhelms AA or anything of the sorts. And while they have planes that can really, ball out of control, they are all low ECM planes. And the Dragon, the Hawks, and most probably the Machbet are gonna make relatively short work against those. So Red Dragons is gonna suffer, I think. If I were a betting man, and I know who's gonna win, and you might know already as well. But if I were a betting man, I'd go for Boulanger. Israel mech definitely has the upper hand. Essentially, no weakness in this matchup, and just units that Red Dragons is gonna struggle with, because they also, the infantry AT, horrible. Out of all the coalitions, probably definitely the worst infantry AT you can have. You have one squad with more than 21 AP, which is Yakin Day 90, or I guess outside of mech you have Jerkok Day 90 as well. But that AT weapon is 50% basic accuracy, 700 meter range, 10 RPM. It's pretty bad when it comes to high-end AT. right? It has not a lot going for it. 23 AP with that accuracy and range and RPM as your best high-end AT is horrible. You have a 21 AP, 20 RPM launcher, which is okay, but the squad is only in Marines. And it's shock, so you pay quite a good amount of. If it was a 9 infantry, it would be good, but it isn't. And then you have a 20 AP, I believe 40% accuracy, 700 meter range, AT weapon as well. And that's it. That 20 AP is gonna deal 2 damage to Merkava 2A. The 23 AP is gonna deal 3.5 damage if I'm not mistaken. So they're gonna struggle. Red Mag is gonna struggle. He's gonna have to rely a lot on those Chanmahos, and I hope that he doesn't get absolutely wrecked by Dorban sitting here or there next to the highway. And it's already 11 minutes gone and the game hasn't even started yet. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. So, what do we have? We have Blazer, Manpad, Zeldas. Presumably going for Charlie. I don't expect him to push with Mech up here. I definitely would push here, that here you can make a lot more use out of your Makamas. And of course, what I forgot to mention, right? As good as the Chanmaho 5 is, it's getting outclassed by the 7C Gimmels. And we can see a 3-stack here, right? Those Gimmels, when every time I make a video that includes these tanks, be it a tier list or Israel Revisited, anything like that, I can just repeat myself. Amazing, incredibly strong medium tank. But nobody pays attention to it because it's a prototype. Then we have Macbeth, incredibly good APs, 8 Zahid, Zelda, Spike, Streak, not even the Merkava 2A. I think it tells you enough about how good this tank is. And also Zeldas are also gonna be awkward to deal with. Well, maybe not so much. It depends on how much like fire support, how many SU-100s, how many Type 59s, etc. he brings, and 2 CTQ-62s. That's basically it. All right. Yeah, MiG-29. I'm not sure about this buy because what's Israel Mech gonna helo drop with? Shiatet and a Nimrod. That's all they get. Yes, they get Cobras, but what is he gonna do with Cobras? Right? Virtually none of your stuff, except the CV, which is a bit, ballsy, really gets that far ahead of your AA that you would need to counter it. I'm not a fan of this buy. Buying an ASF early to protect against, most notably Kerners, one thing, but I don't know. I think this is not the best buy. I think if I were to do this, because this is most notably a dedicated helo hunter, right? If you buy this as soon as you spot the Kerners here, it's not gonna shoot any missiles. So maybe a J8C would have been a better choice, or at least have a longer range anti-plane plane. Whereas this is just a glorified helo hunter. And 125 might just fly completely around the side. So I guess what he did in the end is make sure that there is no helo to spot the Mi-25, which of course, on the other hand, could... Whoa, another one? I mean, I already questioned one, but I think a second one is just... He's got like 240... I guess not exactly 240, right? It's 1.5 minutes. So that's the income... all the income over 1.5 minutes is, that ASF. But 120 points, 180 points... Oh, he immediately buys the Siphon. Gone from the ground. I guess he definitely knows or paid attention to previous games where Krot immediately started with an Mi-35 on highway. Hell in a very small place against Blitzwar as well. So maybe he's expecting something like this to happen very, very early on. I think most people don't expect some sneaking around to happen in the first minute or two. So can really be caught off guard, but Boulanger is at least somewhat prepared. Oh, 2 seconds. Oh no, got cancelled by some Machbad instead, and presumably some ground squads. Yep, to push immediately for this town. A lot of that's interesting. Krot just ignoring this and pushing down here. We don't see that too often. He did that against me, but he was playing in motor decks, so that's not really the same thing. And he helo dropped here as well. But it means he's immediately gonna spot the doorbell and essentially gonna kill it without losing anything. What was that? An APC, presumably? It was just a Zil from the infantry, see me. From the one in the base. Or this one. Any of them. So, yeah, there's the Mi-25. It got spotted. Machbet being bought. Oh, this is gonna be... spots the fob, spots the CV. That's the 10 seconds. Oh, that's really, really close. Toctron being bought immediately. CV being moved. Toctron has, I believe, a 20-second aim time, not 30 seconds, also not 10 seconds. Gimmel's here though, stopping all those IFVs in the tracks. That's important. That way you just can't fast move the infantry up there, although the artillery is gonna take some beating. Some while until it actually dies. But this is... I don't think this is a particularly good position for Krot. Because those Magar 7C Gimmels, and with the infantry support here, would have the upper hand in this engagement. Shanxi are too far away to provide any support, any sponging. And splitting here might actually be a bad idea. Could be a bad idea. But maybe he just wants to have them split up for in case there's a Kurnas coming in immediately or something. But those Magars don't have line of sight, but the Chunmas have line of sight on the Rovide. If they manage to kill the Rovide before the Gimmels... Oh, there we go. Oh no. Before the Gimmels get line of sight, there's something to be had. But now the Gimmels, on the other hand, kill those Shanxi squads. Yeah, I'm not too sure if that's... Oh, there's the Mark 90. That's the 90 points versus 120 points and something like an LRM. Stuns, panics them. Only shaken and the other two are still calm. So a bit off target. A bit hard to hit since they're on the move, of course. But still, even one shaken can really change the engagement if it's 3v3. And now it's getting singled out. The first one missed. Ooh, it hit the panicked shot, but the other two missed. The panicked one hit, but the others missed. Fagot coming in. Boulanger notices, immediately turns around. M25 trying to stop anything here. Razzmann supporting with the CPT against the Rovaids. Those CPTUs can do a lot of damage, especially if you have them at high vet. With quite a rate of fire. Not sure what this smoke is. I guess he does want to get side shot while he shows the front towards the Bantanks. March 90 is not being parked next to the fob. Toctron still hasn't fired. Razzmann are dead. 125 virtually out of ammunition. Bunch of Shanxi 85 being brought here. I'm surprised that he's retreating with those Magars. Really surprised. There's like no anti-tank plane out in the air. This one took a bit of damage. So I don't know, smoking here and putting the Magars like into this position here might have been a better choice. He knows those Chamahos are quite far back, so they're not a threat immediately to those Magars. I don't know. But I mean, he does. I guess he just wanted to be a bit more safe than sorry. He does that now. Maybe just didn't spot it at the moment when he retreated or something along those lines. Martin 90 being resupplied now. Yakin Day sneaking around. Positioning wise though, neither player is really significantly on the back foot, right? Krot hasn't really lost this position here, nor has he lost this position, nor has he lost golf. He is slight in terms of units, but in terms of what is being controlled, it is relatively even. And even though I wouldn't say that the engagement necessarily went in Krot's favor, he did manage to pull out all the important units, right? So he didn't really lose much either. He killed a bunch of Rovaid and Sellers, he killed a Dorban, made things a bit awkward for him, but all he lost was a few Shanxi and 2 Razzmann, right? Nothing major. So he did well by pulling out and not trying to like go into the fight against the Magars, because then he would have lost. Fob being killed, incredibly important I think in this matchup. I don't think Krot can really make good use of a Fob, and honestly I still, like I said in the Helden vs. Small Place match, I don't think running a Fob as Red Dragon's Mag is, for one, necessary, but secondly, necessarily a good idea either. Your units are not very supply intensive. Your tanks have autonomy, your ATGMs are low end, you don't have any heavy missile SAMs, you don't have any expensive helicopters, and your artillery is pretty bad, right? So honestly, I don't think there's any point in running a Fob. But you know, I'm not saying it's like a horrible decision. If you really want to run a lot of Toctrons and make a lot of you like run them a long time, like from the early game, then sure. But if all you get a Toctron in your deck for is to snipe a Fob, I don't think it's necessary. And I think that's the main reason why he runs a Doctrine, is to snipe the fob. And it is quite imperative. And even though he lost an M25 for it and now has to pay another 95 points, killing the fob is crucial. Heavy MLRS, excuse me, quite strong on this map. Quite strong in general, but on this map especially, and against mech decks as well. So getting rid of the fobs to make the usage of March 90 a lot more, certainly not impossible, but a lot more costly, or slow it down, or just mostly stop it even, incredibly important. And I know that fob sniping is, by some people, and even myself to a certain extent, frowned upon, but I'll never blame anyone doing it in a tournament or even a ranked match, right? If you're just playing a friendly match for fun where it's not too much tryhard, then I would say sure, it's a bit of a dick move, but you know, at the end of the day, I don't think it's like in any way comparable to sneaking around. Yes, it is pretty easy to snipe fobs, but on the other hand, that's the risk of running a fob as well, right? You pay the 75 points up front, and you know you are the risk of having such an non-movable unit that can relatively easily be killed if you spot it and have the artillery. And the decks that just don't have access to like strong artillery that are as game changing as March 90s, LRMs, beacons, they have a way to deal with them. Because counter artillery is not always a good option, but that's enough about that. Markowski is just absolutely demolishing Shanchi, of course. Magaf 7Cs, Gimos pushing here against the Fagots, which are just chipping away damage here and there, but overall not doing a whole lot of damage. But one is down to 3 HP. The German hosts are still chilling around here. One is, at least. The other two... Oh no. Oh no, they're right here. For a second I thought I missed them because I was going on about the fob sniping. But yeah. This position got dealt with, and now Krot has very little foothold. And if you're playing mech, then you're just gonna try to push, right? All your stuff is cheap. You're just gonna move up your Rovite to check. If they die, so what? If they don't, hey, it's free position, right? They're essentially scouts. So we're gonna see those Rovite just moving up. Even if they die, I don't think General Boulanger cares. But if even one squad manages to get into the town, if even one squad manages to get into the forest, he knows this forest is clear. He has control of this town. He has optics. He denies the town. There's a lot of value. Shanchi's still holding on here. Now the Wrens are getting wrecked. Those grenade launchers are just incredibly strong fire support. CV being bought for Charlie. It's a bit spicy, but he bought some stuff and brought some stuff to protect it a bit. And of course, against artillery and even bombers, hard to kill. Fabo is around. I guess he's gonna. I don't know if it's for MR25 usage or he wants to buy a plane. Dorban gets hit on John Maho. 21 AP should triple. Ooh, that must have been a side shot. That was a rear shot. Oh no. Yep, that was a rear shot. You hate to see it. I don't even know why. Right? There's no way, right? There's no way Krot told them to. Is it because those Rovite here? Because sometimes units turn, depending on what the spot, right? In my tournament, you may remember that M2 Will got rear shotted here. It's because unit got spotted here, and I was aware of that at the time, by the way. But still, some units don't always do that, right? And if you tell them to move somewhere, and it's not too far away, then the unit won't turn around for it. Like if it's already turned this way and I tell it to move in this direction, it's not gonna turn around, it's just gonna reverse. So maybe it was turning around already because of Rovite or something else got spotted here. Or I don't know, but you hate to see it. It's really frustrating to lose a tank like this. You attack moving into a direction and it just doesn't turn around. You don't always have the time to zoom in or make sure it's turned around. Although you have the unit viewer on the left that you could use for that. Still though, very frustrating for Krot, for sure. Surprised to really see those Shanchi 85 in the town still hold on against this Rovite. And as I said, the Rovite finally finished him off. I don't know why those Merkavas aren't moving up against Shanti. What are the Shanti gonna do against the Merkava way? Yeah, there you go. You move up, Boulanger. And the Rovite are out of law. Ammunition. And those Tomahawks are being moved back. Or maybe he doesn't fully know that they're moved back. Oh, I guess, you know, maybe he just isn't quite sure what else might there be in there. Yakyunde 90, another tank, a Recon tank. So I guess he just wants to be overly cautious with them. And you know, as a caster, as seeing the replay, of course I know what's in there. But he has a Siphon as well. He could just scout ahead with the Siphon a bit. I don't know. I definitely would have moved up here, but maybe he just wants to sit me here and not move them up while he's pushing there, so he don't accidentally move them up too far, which is of course understandable. I do that all the time. I tell something to attack move, do something on the other front line, and then realize I moved them up way too far, and then they're dead. So if he wants to pretend then good choice, because I do that shit all the time. Chanmahona being maneuvered around this side. Gotta say, Krot do be very good at it, just like maneuvering his tanks between front lines. I think a lot of people, and not rarely myself included, just fail to do that or forget about it or just ignore that possibility. Krot doing a very good job with that, just has to be said. Nimrod being bought, very interesting. Nimrod is actually going to be somewhat awkward to deal with for Krot. The MiG-29 of course is gonna murder it if it's gonna get a gun run on it and the missiles off. But other than that, none of the AA that Krot has access to has the same range as the Nimrod or outranges it. Right? It's 2,800 meters maximum, and at the moment all that's on the field are Iglas. Of course he doesn't really need more at the moment, because you know he has MiG-29s up. And speaking of the Fabe of earlier, here we see an anti-tank plane coming in, going for. I guess he just wanted to go for the Gimmels, but doesn't spot them anymore. Also, of course, completely ignored, but there was only one CTQ here, so it obviously got completely overwhelmed. Oh, there's Yakyunde moving into the Achterhit, and the Achterhit is spotted. We just saw those Rovite moving, right? So if Boulanger paid a lot of attention, he might have realized that that the Achterhit was spotted, but very, very hard to realize such things if they only spotted for a split second. You gotta have incredible awareness of that, and of course a lot of luck that at the moment, you know, you're viewing this and not just, you know, if your position is like this, right, you're currently microing here, you're not gonna spot this. And yep, you can in the 90s kill it and stop the bleed. Oh, the question becomes, how quickly and how easily can Boulanger deal with this? And yep, there we go. 55-point investment into to kill those Yakyunde. JH7 hit only once, so all those Gimmels arrive. They've been in the fight with the Chonmaho 5s, and all of those come out alive. I don't think they killed the Chonmaho on their end, but I was busy explaining that thing. Chonmaho 5 here takes a shot from the Dorban as it got spotted, presumably because it just fired briefly. But yeah, again, this time around, Krot does have line of sight on the highway. I think in the previous game where I mentioned line of sight, it was it Krot versus Blitzwar? Yeah, it was Krot versus Blitzwar. Dorban snipes the Recon transport. Lots of Dorbans around. Dorbans are, you know, incredibly strong asset for Israel, but he has to be careful. Yeah, he does turn off the weapons. He doesn't want to waste them on 5-point transfers. Without a fob, it's gonna be very, very costly to resupply them. Very, very costly. And he runs only one kind of supply trucks, which are the Rios, which are not particularly point efficient. So he has to be really careful. Definitely should give them at least some fuel. Had the ammunition turned on, so he unfortunately resupplied all the ammo, which is just unnecessary supply usage in this scenario. H7 doesn't take a single point of damage from the Machbet, which only shot at Stingers. M25, a bit scary. Doesn't wanna lose those Dorbans. But Krot's still holding strong in mid, still hasn't lost this. And still a lot of Chonmahos on the field, although one of them is decently damaged. But the Magars not being back here, all those Rovates are unsupported. So Krot could just maneuver up. So I honestly just really good maneuvering with those German hoes. The Nimrod here could really come in and save the day though. Doesn't one-shot these, but deals significant amount of damage. This one should definitely die to one-shot, I believe, to the front, right? 12 AP. 12 AP difference. 14 AP, generally speaking, you need to one-shot. So it's gonna deal something like 8 damage. Merkava dueling the CTQ. CTQ with 17 AP, which is close to max range, I presume. Not really gonna deal a whole lot of damage to the Merkava. Chamaho though shooting in. But that's a very annoying position for Krot, because from this position up here, especially if there were a Doorburner here, could really ruin the day here. He's somewhat lucky, I guess you could call it, that at the moment there's no Doorburner up here and this one is out of ammo. This Doorburner here now, coming to the fight though, with that really good range and accuracy of course. Shy Ted that came with a Nimrod, being killed off. Nimrod fired one missile. Oh, it did kill one of the German hosts, I suppose. Sorry for missing that. Tokchon still firing on. I mean, it's once again Krot just overkilling the fob. But I mean, let me put it this way: a single Tokchon is not going to change the day. So just, you know, firing here into the empty position instead of in the fight here, not going to make a huge difference, honestly. Again, those three guys should probably give them at least a bit of fuel. There we go. Yep, good choice. You don't want to have them run out of fuel in the middle of the fight. Turn it off, turn it off, turn it off. It's too much fuel. There we go, there we go. I don't know. Again, he has to be careful with his supply. He doesn't have a fob left. And the Doorburns are supply intensive. Those Yakin is still not dealt with. It's really annoying. ZFB only shooting with the autocannon to do with the ZSD. Again, important supply usage. Rocket pods are supply intensive, so he doesn't want to waste them on some 5-pointers here. Oh, the German. Oh, Doorburn loses line of sight last second. All those trees are in the way. Another one coming in though. And yep. Krot gotta make use of his mortar. He has bought it, but apparently never used it. Should have made some use here. So many Doorburns around here. Can't blame him. Incredibly strong unit. Merkava 2 ace. 3 of them sitting here. Doing nothing. I presume that's the 2 Merkava 2 ace from back here and the third one being bought and then merged. Magach 7C is coming back into play here. Provide support, trying to push Krot out again. With only 2 German hosts now in the fight. The third one is here, but just sitting passively. Cherry 7 coming in. Again, hitting only once. But getting out alive. So, at the very least, it's gonna, you know, damage one. Best case scenario, it's gonna put it out of the fight. And, you know, maybe either Boulanger is just gonna retreat all 3 of them or split them and get one out. J7H coming in, bomber, but not dropping anything. Shanchi being tried to move up here, but without any support, they're gonna get dragged by the Merkava 2A. And Achzarit being bought for mid now, presumably because he still hasn't found those Yaki on days. Weapons being turned off a bit too late. ZFB got. Oh! That was a crit. My goodness. Was really lucky. I was gonna say, okay, here we go. I was gonna say, yeah, can their weapon a bit turn off a bit too late there. J7H coming in, another J7H seed, and the AT gem plane behind as well. ASF at the ready as well. As soon as it's, oh no, Vulcan is not being turned on. Magach 7C got splitted. The other two took a significant amount of damage because that bomb hit behind them, right? So they hit the rear armor, which is only 3, so they took both 6 damage. Ah, that's really bad for Boulanger. Of course, Krot doesn't know how much damage they took until he spots them, which he seems to do, right? Yep. Okay. Again, ooh, they both took 5 damage. I guess either they both got hit individually by a stinger, or they were like the moment they were like, you know, intersecting. They both, one of them got hit in the splash damage, dealt 5 damage, but they're both on 5 HP, which means that as soon as they evac, they have to take some damage. And this, okay, hopefully for Boulanger's sake, you paid attention to this, right? They're gonna be out of commission for a while because of, you know, damage and fuel, of course, but most notably damage. And that's a window that Boulanger can use. That's a window where he can buy Kernas. And since he hasn't really seen any heavy AA, and of course, Red Dragon's Mech doesn't get heavy AA, he can get a lot of value out of it. Or essentially at least a guaranteed run from the Kernas, where it's more or less guaranteed to survive. So he can really, really make use of that. J7 coming in again. Those skimmers were just about spotted, but not anymore. I'm really oh, never mind. There's Shenafs. I was gonna say I'm surprised to not see any ASFs, but now there's Shenafs critting that J7 and dealing that J7, dealing some significant damage to the J7 as well. Because main gun being turned off again. It has only 9 rounds. Why waste it on infantry that badly damages you? Again, surprised to see him reverse. He has a right here and Zelda here that he can use to like make sure there's nothing at the flanks of the Makama 2A. Quite conservative with its usage, and it does have medium optics, right? So it's not going to be ambushed as easily as something else. Jackson Days did get dealt with here, and Achtarit coming in. Similarly to Krot, who has preserved his Stromahos, those Magars also preserved quite well. And now there's finally those 3 Makara 2As coming into the play here. You know, sometimes you just forget about a unit here or there. I guess that's what happened here. But especially against the horse of Shanxi, they can really turn the way around. But I would really like to see them being split. I understand that, you know, using them in a stack can sometimes make things easier, but they make the J7Hs and such a lot weaker. Who nearly killed the Shenafs. One of them got stunned, and of course damaged. The other one is perfectly fine. But, you know, if you have them split up, you know, a single J7H is not going to deal 6 damage to both of your tanks. 5 Wonders just being suicided down here for scouting purposes. 2 Zephyrs being bought. Talk about knee-jerk. Oh, one of them. One got cancelled again. I was gonna say, talk about knee-jerk reactions. Krot once again, quite ballsy with the lack of defense here. Of course, against Israel Mag, you're not gonna, you know, expect something weird coming down here with an autocannon, because I don't have anything like that. Still a bit ballsy in my eyes, but you know, if it's working, if it looks stupid but it works, it's not stupid, right? Krot made sure this is clear, or knows this is clear. He captured the supply tracks, which is actually quite nice because he still has a fob. But outside of middle, not a lot of control. He has those Shanxi here, but Boulanger knows this is clear, right? So those Shanxi are not gonna do too much. He has very little control here. And not full control over mid yet, question mark, but there are these 3 Makara 2As that are full HP, 2 more Magars that are fully repaired soon again as well. So, and not looking too amazing. But if he can, you know, make Boulanger, ooh, and another plane goes down. There we go, another crit, I believe. And was, there was a J7H, I think, right? Not a J7. If you don't pay full attention to the planes, it's hard to really make sure which one it is. Very good seed micro. But not gonna do too much with that short burst there. Shono 5s. How many do we have here? 3 still? You have 3 German 5s and 2 PTC 89s. At long ranges, of course, and if they're not like one-on-one, gonna do significant damage to tanks, of course. The best usage is, of course, in second line, and then engage with them as, you know, the enemy tanks are currently fighting something else, or ambush them into the side if you can somehow. Faber flying directly above the Macbeth, though. 2 Macbeths. Ooh, and goes down. For 1 Shenaf, and the J7H dealing some significant damage to the Macbeth. But 3 front and 2 side armor and 2 rear armor means that you're gonna have to like hit them basically on top, right? 2 armor is gonna reduce damage to 40%, or is a 0.4 damage multiplier, so 20 HE will deal 8 damage, as we saw here. Make 29 coming in a bit too close for comfort, but the Shenaf is out of ammunition. It might bite out of Stinger as well, which is kind of funny, but you know, don't underestimate the gun. Now a counter push is happening. And Boulanger is just gonna ignore all the stuff here and just push down there, which, yep, sounds like a good idea. He has control of Echo, so what he can do is put Dorbans here and support them from the side here as well. And this looks like it looks like it's exactly what he's trying to do. Margin 90 used his last 2 rounds that got from 1 Rio on something. Sorry, but I didn't pay full attention there. And those MiG-29s just do be circling. Still, Not a single plane on Boulanger's end. Maybe he just wants to wait until he maybe snapped the MiG-29 or something as well and then bring him out. But honestly, if they just keep circling mostly, together, just wait until they both evac. One is evac. Wait until these evac and bring you out your Kerners. That's what I would do. Kerners is just a low skill, high reward unit. Infantry just being engaged here while the tanks can't support them. That's not what you want to do. There more coming in? Nope, no sellers coming in at the moment. Krot tries to counter push. He's gotta micro pretty well and make sure those tanks shoot at something else and then move into range with his Strongmahos and PTCs. Plane coming in. J7Hs. Evac though, evac. Because no, never mind. I saw a fast moving dot on the map, so I thought this was plane, but it's just a Zephyr. Magars are retreating. Of course, against moving tanks or something, it's gonna be tough to make use of those J7Hs. Krot again trying to push a bit further here. Border CV for the side as well. A bit premature, but Boulanger is sticking at a +1 with only 12.5 minutes to go, and it's hard to make comebacks on this. Like not comebacks, but if you make a comeback, it's hard to get a +3 or +4 going because there are no 2-pointers and not a lot of zones. So he kind of has to stop the bleed relatively soon because it's only 12 minutes to go. If this was like a minute 35 or something, +1 not a big deal. But if there's 12 minutes to go, you're gonna be under pressure, and it's gonna be, of course, what he could try to put a CV in here, but I think he reckons it's too spicy because, again, a Kerners or even a brand new Mars 90 which comes with ammunition might just snipe this. And he lost control of this part again as well. More Doorburns coming in. But again, I think, of course, hindsight 2020. If you had used the Merkava 2A a bit more proactively there with those basic Shanshi, and then Krot would have had no line of sight on this forest anymore, and as such couldn't have as such easily reinforced the stuff again. Oh, there's the Mega 6s. Oh, surprised to actually see them coming out. There's still a Nimrod with only one missile we used. Again, there's not a lot of ground-based AA from Krot's end, just crossing chunks everywhere and relying a lot on those ASMs. That's what I said in last game, right, on Paddy Field, where I was surprised to not see a lot of planes from Krot, because he really likes those planes. But I guess, even though they didn't kill much, they might have had just the wanted effect, which is deny Kerners is coming out. The Kerners is such a ridiculously strong unit. If those two MiG-29s, had the effect that Boulanger just, never wanted to buy the Kerners, they might have just still paid off anyway, even though they didn't really kill much. But it's of course hard to know. Hard to quantify even. But yeah, despite all, Krot, in terms of, grinding, doing a good job. Again, keeping those Strongmahos alive. And now stopping the bleed. But he's only stopping the bleed, not counter-ticking. And Boulanger does have a 70-point advantage for a +1. That's about 5 minutes of +1. So of course, far from impossible, but still not gonna be particularly easy. J7H is gonna go down. Recover took some damage. Machbet goes down to the CTQ. And 125 being bought immediately, but there is a Barkan here. So unless it gets killed earlier, it will protect the Artillery. Also Drakon being bought. Merkava 2A. There are some Magar 6s, so Krot's not gonna have too easy of a time. The Merkava 2A is now out of main gun ammo. That is of course its main weakness. Supply truck being killed by Merkava 2A. And Merkava 2A just immediately goes down. Shanji being moved down here, fast move down here. I think what Krot now wants to do is probably just move down here and then attack Charlie this way. It's probably his best avenue of starting attack on his end. But there's a bunch of Dorbands. Stefabi, there's still a Nimrod. So he has to make sure that he doesn't overextend too much or too quickly. And has the supporting units to make sure he doesn't get absolutely destroyed from like 3 different angles and 5 different units. There's still a Rovite here, which I believe killed a 5-pointer. Luckily, M25 just got bought earlier, and the CDQ catches them while they're crossing the open here. Crossing John kills its FIB. Barely gets killed in return because rocket bots are garbage. Blazer gets a side shot onto, I believe, this John Maho, but gets killed in return. 2 M125s even. One single Barkhan might have trouble with it, unless of course the M125s do engage something else, so they can't quick kill the Barkhan quickly enough themselves. And M125 is down, and the M125 this one doesn't fly over the Barkhan, so it doesn't spawn it and doesn't have the chance to kill it. And even gets a stun here with the critical hit. Oh, another critical hit, but just to get it with the Barrel Glass, I suppose. Doesn't have line of sight here because of the forest, presumably. One of the John Mahos got killed, presumably the one that got side shot by the Recon tank. McTiernan is down to 2 HP coming in for the Nimrod. Yep, the very big size, elite, and just enough fuel to actually get the missiles off. Wow, that's some timing. 2 more M25s coming in. Can't blame him necessarily. He has to go fast. He needs a tick, and he's slowly but surely gonna push out. And Boulanger does have the foothold to put a CV in here, right? So it's not like he will have control of Delta the whole time. And all those tanks are in Gulf. Barak now coming in, too close to actually get the other set of missiles onto this John Maho, though, unfortunately. Kills one though. Do we see a CV being bought? We don't. Oh, there's a Dragon. Barkhan must have, well, maybe not missed its last stinger. It might have killed the MiG-29. Oh, and the Barkhan uses its last 2 missiles onto the MiG-29, which means the M25 either might kill it or just, you know, it's gonna live long enough because the Dragon is gonna be busy reloading for 20 seconds. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how you can abuse salvo reloads on AA pieces. And here we go. Does the M25 have enough damage output to kill that Achzarit? Up front, it's not gonna do all too much damage, but this is the CTQ coming in. The Achzarit is honestly such a choke of a unit as well. And Dragon is stun reloading. Optical failure, mostly irrelevant. And there we go. Achzarit just goes to show how incredibly useful that 10 front armor is. 6 side, 5 back, and 2 top, of course, very much as well. But if this was anything else in this price range, probably would have died. I guess that's ZZZ, like a CC. Ooh, goes down to the. Wait, I don't think it was the. No, it wasn't them. It wasn't them. Must have been a 2A then. Goes down, and Delta is basically in Boulanger's control mostly. Now, this is very, very bad for Krot. Dorman's here, Merkava's there, Magar's there. They're now all cut off. I mean, it's mostly, I guess there's CDQ and the PDCs. They're gonna have a tough time to survive, but the Merkavas are out of fuel. And after it's just sitting here. And right now, Boulanger, he could try to save it, but it might be best to just let it sit here even if it dies. Of course, you wouldn't know that they're approaching because it has not had an optical failure, and I believe they're yeah, that Robot didn't have line of sight here because this was anyway Merkava too deep in the forest, so he wasn't spotting them. But even then, might have been better to just have it sit here, because by the time it's I guess it doesn't really take too long to get to Delta. But of course, again, with the optical failure, he didn't actually know that Chan Mao was there. BJ4 to be could. This is. Yep, he doesn't have any arteries left. He lost 2 in Charlie, 1 in Bravo, 1 in Echo. So BTR 40 coming in. Not too bad of a CV. It doesn't have top armor, but 1 armor all around with 10 HP. The armor not so much important as the HP is compared to GCVs. And Browning, which isn't too bad. Dorban, of course, one-shotting the PTC with only 5 armor. Gets killed in return, but definitely worthwhile kill. Magas. Yeah, this is also what I don't like. Split them up. Split them up. They're so far apart. If only one of them gets spotted, the opponent will still know there's the 2 stack of them in there, and they will might even not, no, they will not know where the second one is, but still, and they're so far away they can't even actually properly support each other. So PTC, it doesn't have a stabilizer, but it does have the turret facing towards them. The Magas turret is not facing towards the PTC, so nope, they're turning around. But the PTC is standing still, so it having no stabilizer is not gonna have an impact. And there we go. Not a horrible trade though for Boulanger. Sure, Magas are more important and more expensive, but he keeps the position. And with only 4 minutes to go, it's probably preferable. CTQ goes down to Macau 2A, so we're stationary here. And Macau 2A just finish off the infantry. Shanxi, with enough basic RPGs, the Magak will eventually go down or just drive into the CTQ. This got dealt with as well. Panic, well, not panic, but this, you know, CV being brought for Charlie, desperation. And he surrenders, actually. I didn't pay attention to the timer. Yeah. I think in the first 2/3 of the game, Krot doing actually quite a good job at like keeping up with the grind. I didn't expect that. I would definitely thought he would have a much harder time. He did a lot. Honestly, he got so much done with the maneuvering of his German house. Just very well done, it has to be said. But at the end of the day, Boulanger did a really, really good job at keeping his Magas alive as well, knowing when to engage and when not to engage. He was a bit too conservative, too careful for my taste. But on the other hand, this is the 3rd game in a best of 3. The winner will win, so he probably wanted to play it safe, rather safe than sorry, and knows or expected that in the long run, Israel Mega is just going to be more efficient, so he doesn't really need to take the fight early and can take his time as long as he doesn't like lose control of the zone, lose control of important forests. And it worked out for him, right? Yeah, and Israel showing like with the Doorbands, with the Artillerie, with the Magas, just how strong it is. But yeah, Boulanger, of course, which you probably knew already, is gonna move into the grand finals against Greyhound. Games that I also plan to cast, unless something else happens in terms of Wargame. Wink, wink. And yeah, still well played by Krot, even though the kill-death ratio is so one-sided. I think most of those came from like the last 10 minutes-ish, when Krot just had to push and just pushed, and then just eventually just crumbled and everything fell apart. I think up until then it was relatively even, though most likely still in favor of Boulanger, if I had to guess. Don't forget that Krot also lost a lot of planes towards last third of the game. Last half even, actually. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. And I'll hopefully see you next time. Later.